Welcome to Superhero Rundown. I'm Lady Jess, and today it's all about the fastest man alive, and Barry Allen. Wait, does that mean the main character of the show isn't the fastest man alive? If he isn't, then who is? Well, you'll find out as we review The Flash Season 1. Flash is part of the Arrowverse, which they are seriously calling the DC Universe TV shows that crosses over with the Arrow, including The Flash, Legends of Tomorrow, and an animated series, Vixen. A name that's particularly silly considering the fact that Arrow and Universe don't even remotely work together as a pun. And talk about playing favorites. I mean, you don't see the MCU calling their shared movies the Iron Man verse. So I'm going to break this down. Characters, plot, arcs, themes, and a few interesting tidbits I found while watching the series. Also, spoilers. I will ruin this for you. So if you haven't seen Flash Season 1, go watch it right now. It's okay, I'll wait. Actually, you could just pause the video and I'll be here when you get back. I'm just going to keep going right now, though. Thanks. Barry Allen is a forensic analyst for the Central City Police Department who works with his foster dad, Joe. We learn early on that his real dad is in jail for his mother's murder, while Barry is dead set on believing that his father is innocent. Barry is also a huge fan of Dr. Harrison Wells, who has built a particle accelerator in the city and wants to go see it when it's turned on. That came out way more sexual than I was expecting. Well, anyway, something goes wrong and the accelerator blows its load. Okay, I did that one on purpose. And Barry is struck by lightning. He wakes up 9 months later with superpowers.
Lightning gave me abs.
I'm not fangirling about this! Stop it! Anyway, Barry meets Caitlin Snow, Cisco Ramon, and Dr. Harrison Wells in Star Labs. Together, the four help Barry discover his powers, like reversing tornadoes, sucking up things with his arms, which, how does that even work? Speed reading, time travel, and various types of tactics against his villains. But Barry gets beaten up by the Man in Yellow, or the Reverse Flash. Over the series, he faces all the classic villains that have gotten their powers from the particle accelerator incident, like Peekaboo, Captain Cold, Heatwave, and Mist. But of all of them, Barry can't seem to beat Reverse Flash. Along the way, he has to hide his identity to protect the ones he loves, which they always end up finding out anyway, so fat load of good that does. But in the end, due to time travel-related circumstances, Reverse Flash gives him the opportunity to go save his mom right after Arrow, Flash, and Firestorm beat Dad ass. However, things don't go as expected, but Eddie, Joe's partner, saves the day while accidentally causing a black hole because weird paradox bullshit that I can't explain because it'll just end up making you ask further questions that I can't answer because this is a pre-recorded video. As it turns out that the Reverse Flash is Wells, who is actually Eobard Thawne, a distant relative of Eddie's, who wants to kill the Flash for reasons, and probably a justifiable reason to someone. Flash then runs into a black hole or something and hopes he'll be able to save the day as we end on a cliffhanger. From the very beginning of the series, we are asked to believe in the impossible. When Joe gives Barry the task of explaining the impossible to Eddie, Joe's partner, Barry gets super uncomfortable about it until he reveals to Eddie that he is indeed the Flash, the vigilante that Eddie just tried to arrest earlier, so that's a little bit of awkward. A lot of the interesting elements are actually with Arrow, specifically when Oliver tries to train Barry when he shows up to hunt Captain Boomerang. Oliver tries to teach him how to be a good hero because Barry's extremely impulsive, which we see even before he gets his powers, but this exchange makes it all worth it for me.
Last month you took on a man named Leonard Snart.
We call him Captain Cold.
We can talk about you giving your enemies silly code names later.
You mean like over coffee with Deathstroke and the Huntress?
Spot on characterization for this universe. He also tells Barry that superheroes need to keep learning, and given how many times Barry up this season, he really needs to take his word. That being said, Oliver is definitely the less likable superhero out of the two. Barry is not a doom and gloom kind of superhero. What makes him stand out so well is just how much he believes in the good of people, and actively tries to see it. But with that hopefulness comes naivete and impulsiveness. He tries to listen, but a lot of the time he's rushing headlong into things without thinking and to disastrous consequences. Like when he fought Mist and almost got poisoned. But one of the biggest themes of the season is lying, secrets, and the doubts that come with those secrets. This is a web of intricacy that we're going to have to untangle. From as soon as Barry gets his powers, it seems he wants to come clean to Iris, but Joe, in his dumbass wisdom, made him promise not to tell Iris that he had super speed and spends the entire season hiding it from her, roping in various parties, and when she does find out, she's really upset that everyone knew but her. Keep in mind, Iris is a reporter, and he works for the cops. And sometimes they have cases that could get people close to them in trouble with criminals. So you would think that Iris would be just a little bit more understanding with not wanting to tell everything to the person most likely to share things with the press that could put a target on their backs, but whatever. Barry is secretive, but not as secretive as Harrison Wells, who turns out to not even be Harrison Wells, but actually the Reverse Flash Eobard Thawne. At the very beginning of the season, we see him start killing people to protect Barry while presenting himself as a team player, a nice guy, and someone who wants to help Barry and the police alike. At the core of these secrets are friendships and partnerships. Joe and Eddie as police partners, Iris and Barry as the best of friends, Cisco, Caitlin, and Wells as co-workers, as well as many other different facets of friendship. Barry learns a lot about how to trust people and form friendships, something he will no doubt take with him to the Justice League and the Arrowverse when it actually forms. Barry doesn't tell Iris how he feels until she's with Eddie, and even then we get an interesting bit of storytelling when she breaks down to tell him that she loves him right before he travels back in time, and when trying to confront her again, this time with the confidence of knowing how she subconsciously feels about him, telling her about how she feels, Eddie just punches him in the face. Another of the big secrets this season is Joe and Barry investigating Wells behind his back, and while they think they're being secretive, at the end of the season, it's revealed that Wells knew about it the whole time. In order to even begin to explain character, I have to tell you why they were investigating him in the first place. So in the quest to discover who actually killed Barry's mother, Nora, it starts out with Joe getting Wells to help investigate the murder. Barry then asks Wells to help him catch the man in yellow because of what he remembers from the murder pieced together from what Joe told him. Joe then seeks Cisco's help, and when they reinvestigate the murder scene, they find an old mirror on which Cisco is able to reproduce the images from the lightning on the night of the murder because science. They find blood and Cisco tests it to find that an adult Barry was also there that night. Joe tells Barry about the images, and Barry suggests time travel as the thing he must do, even if you do reach the right speed, colliding with the hydrogen particle, there is a chance that explosion could create a singularity.
What's a singularity?
It's a black hole. We could destroy Central City.
For starters.
Which, hey, superhero! When you've got a choice between saving one person who's already been dead for more than a decade at the possible expense of destroying the entire fabric of the world as we know it, you should probably go with the option that saves more lives. Also, the fact that the villain, the Reverse Flash, wants you to go to a timeline where you won't even exist as a superhero isn't a teensy bit of a warning bell. Anyway, we see that Cisco has visions from the alternate timeline where Wells reveals who he really is and kills him. And so Cisco and Joe go to Starling City and go find the real Wells' dead body with the help of Captain Quentin Lance. After the pair returns, Barry, Caitlin, and Cisco find the hidden room where Reverse Flash kept all his stuff and learn some things about the future, like the Flash disappears, he got a promotion, and that he also married Iris. Everyone meets up and Barry tells them about the time travel, and they go to Cisco's dream for a confession from Wells. They then set a trap for Wells in the real world, and when the trap is set off, Wells is a completely different place using a shapeshifter to replace him. They find that Wells has been watching them the whole time, and Reverse Flash kidnaps Eddie. Finally, the showdown happens with Arrow, Firestorm, and Flash taking Reverse Flash down. After Wells explains that he hates Barry, the two discuss the possibility of saving Nora in the past and the whole timeline being changed. As I already explained, Barry comforts his dying mother, punches Reverse Flash in the face as he tries to go back to his own timeline. Eddie kills himself and erases the Reverse Flash from existence, as well as creating a black hole because you, now you have to watch season 2. Barry is impulsive to a fault, but he does have a good heart and is exactly the superhero to contrast against Oliver Queen and Arrow. He's bubbly, but he can be sad, and Grant Gustin is a great Barry Allen. Barry is just starting out as a superhero, and he makes mistakes, but Cisco, Caitlin, Joe, and to an extent Wells try to steer him in the right direction, to make the right choices, to be a superhero. I will say that Barry's impulsiveness does occasionally help against the villain of the week, but it does give him more than a fair share of getting him into trouble. Barry's most redeeming quality is that he wants to help people, which is what we deep down strive to do in the real world, if we only had the power to. He might be a bit of a sarcasm machine to the people he answers to, but at the end of the day, he has a lot of heart. Even when he loses his powers, he tries to reason with the bad guy rather than do what others suggest. In terms of a love life, Barry loves Iris like he's irrepressibly stone-cold stupid in love with her. He does try to date Linda, but we all know that it ain't happening. Iris West is Barry's childhood best friend and love interest, even if she's dating Eddie for most of the season. She's the girl in the triangle, and we all know how that goes, and because of that predictability, she winds up being grown-worthy and how she gets retooled in the later episodes as the one character who becomes an annoyance because they won't let her in on what's happening, so she just ends up being an obstacle to get around instead of being framed as a character legitimately making her way through a world of secrets and monsters. Even when Felicity warns Barry about the loneliness of being a superhero, he still pursues Iris, admitting to her that he loves her, but she brushes him off and they agree not to talk to or hang out with each other for a while. During this time, Iris builds her relationship with Eddie, the other guy in this triangle, eventually moving in with him. But Iris is also obsessed with finding out more about the Flash, or as she calls him the first couple of episodes in the season, the Streak. It doesn't help that the Flash flirts with her a lot, providing Barry an outlet for his admiration with her. She wants to write about him even when Barry, the Flash, and Joe tell her that it can get her into deep shit. When she finds out that Eddie wants a task force to stop the Flash, she gets upset until the Flash beats up Eddie. Eventually, Iris makes up with the Flash and is hired by Central City Picture News to write about him, and only him, despite the fact that she wants to be taken seriously as a reporter and cover other stories. In another episode, Iris and Eddie go out on a double date with Barry and Linda. Remember Linda, the girlfriend I told you about that is totally not going to happen with? Yeah, her. Well, Eddie and Linda feel super awkward with Iris and Barry being the best of friends and flirting in front of them. When Eddie and Barry leave to go get a police call, the girls split without so much as a goodbye, clearly not liking the situation. When the weather wizard shows up, she professes that she loves Barry and he reveals that he's the Flash. But after he travels through time, Eddie clocks the ever-loving out of him for still trying to make moves on Iris. One character trait about her that bears repeating, because I can't stand it, is that Iris wants Eddie to not keep secrets from her. She grew up with a cop. Shouldn't she know sometimes they can't talk about investigations? He might have to be secretive as to not blow an investigation or a sting, and she's being all stupid about it. It's baffling to me that someone with such a close relationship with a police officer her whole life would be so inconsolably angry about this. She even gives him an ultimatum. I mean, look. We are given absolutely no hint that Eddie could possibly be cheating on her, and neither is she. She's just in general mad that he could possibly be keeping anything from her. Here's an idea, genius. Maybe he wants to propose to you, and generally you don't want to know about that kind of thing beforehand. Ruins the surprise. You see? Now don't you feel like a dumbass. When Eddie is kidnapped by Reverse Flash, Iris finds out that Barry is the Flash. She confronts Barry about it at Star Labs, but he lets it slip that Joe told her not to tell her and that he wanted to tell her so numerous times. When Eddie is found, she confronts him about the ring, but he tells her that he doesn't want to propose now because he's been shown the future, and in it, they don't stay together. But Iris tells him she doesn't believe in destiny, and they make up. Just before Eddie shoots himself, I mean, to save them all from Reverse Flash, but still, talk about bad timing. Joe West, the father of Iris and foster father of Barry, is probably the second funniest man on the show without actually meaning to be.
So, human bomb. Must be Tuesday in Central City.
I mean, he confronts villains like this.
When I saw what I could do, I understood. I am God.
Shut the hell up.
Joe does want what's best for both kids, even if both don't always agree with him, and I think we can relate to all three on some level, whether you're the kids who are brash and quick to action, or the father who's more contemplative and willing to go by the book. I also like how Joe interacts with Henry Allen, Barry's real dad. Henry is very proud of Barry for being the Flash and saving people, even if Joe doesn't always agree with putting people in harm's way. The dad versus dad conversations are really engaging and heartfelt, at least the ones that don't end up in gas murder.
Joe?
It really kills the vibe. Ha, vibe. Superhero puns are so amazingly stupid. Joe also tells Iris that he doesn't want her dating Eddie because he doesn't want to think of his partner that way, especially that he might have to one day tell her that he couldn't protect Eddie if something went wrong, and it's actually an extremely touching moment. As well, he helps Barry visit his dad in prison when they investigate cases. He's an all-around good guy. He's also the one who reopens the investigation on Wells and does some groundwork to find out that there were 2 speedsters there the night that Barry's mother died. Wells is like a whole can of worms, so I'm just gonna give you the basics. Wells does genuinely appear to want to help Barry when you watch the show for the first time. But between the secret room and the killing of people interested in Barry, and up until it's revealed that he fully reveals who he truly is, you're always left with doubt as to whether or not he's a good person. In fact, I'd recommend watching the show twice just to see how knowing the end game of this character colors your viewing of it the second time. Caitlin Snow and Cisco Ramon are the assistants to Dr. Wells. Caitlin is the no-nonsense doctor/medical type who cares for Barry, while Cisco is like the Q of this universe in that he builds the gadgets. He gets super excited about discovering new metahumans that he names them, and his inspirational villain nomenclature moments are perpetually enjoyable.
Or at least a way to stop him from turning into a mist. The Mist! Okay, that's his name. End of discussion. Adios, Prism.
I liked Rainbow Raider.
Okay, you don't get to pick the names. An extreme heat wave. Heat wave.
Stop doing that.
Caitlin and Cisco find out that Ronnie, who we know in the plot as Firestorm and Caitlin's fiance, is alive, and they spend a lot of time that season trying to figure out what happened to him, which turns out to be a strange mind-melding thing which put both characters in one body, and it becomes a race to split them apart again before they become a nuclear explosion. Superheroes are weird. Cisco, meanwhile, feels guilty about having saved his brother and revealing Barry's identity, so much so that he wants to leave the team. But he does make up for it by helping Joe find out that there were 2 speedsters, and by being the bait for the shapeshifter that attacks him. It's also revealed that his ability to see into alternate timelines wasn't just an accident, as it turns out that that moment was the awakening of a superpower in him as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out in Season 2. Captain Cold is my favorite villain of the season, hands down. He's such a classic villain in that he delights in taking part in villainy, and he has such a deliciously devilish delivery of lines. He's one twirling mustache away from tying women to train tracks. Also, his sister has a gun that turns everything to gold, which, if you're a thief, but you also have a gun that turns things into gold, I mean, do I have to explain why someone who wants to get rich quick would no longer need to steal things if they have a gun that turns things into gold? You could literally goldify your household items, sell them, and be a f***ing millionaire. What the hell is wrong with you, woman? Well, I guess if you're just dead set on being a villain. Alright, Cisco, what's her villain name?
Oh, come on. You made my gun. Least you can do is give me a badass alias.
Fine. Golden Glider.
What? Golden Glider? Couldn't you have gone with something like Queen Midas? Or, oh, the girl with the golden gun! Okay, that was probably the Bond girl fan in me. Back to Captain Cold. He seems to have a very rigid set of moral standards, but he reveals in the second to last episode of the season,
I'm a criminal and a liar, and I hurt people.
He also brings up the whole good versus bad versus ambiguous and metahumans question. While he doesn't have the best execution of methods, he does have a sense of duty and does understand the power of having something over people. If they're going to make him a main character in the Arrowverse, it'll be interesting to see how they use him.
The Scarlet Speedster. Any preference on how you'd like to die? The flame or the frost?
He'd actually make a pretty competent James Bond villain.
Such a cold finger beckons you to enter his web of sin. This heart is cold.
Hey, I didn't even have to change the lyrics there. This series portrays a believable superhero with a CSI job with the police force. It's also pretty clever in its varying character development of each metahuman. The season starts out with a solid pilot, and while some episodes can be a bit of a tread through familiar plot points with how the writers handle Iris's character, ultimately it's a big web of various advancing plots which serve as threads that all come together right when they need to. Flash is what a fun superhero story should be, but next time we're going to go back to Starling City and see what's in store for Oliver Queen in Season 2 of Arrow.